Our US Open coverage is brought to you by Fungiball.
Fungiball is a play to earn fantasy tennis game that seamlessly combines the thrill of professional tennis with the transformative power of blockchain technology.
Allowing tennis fans to collect, trade, and compete with digital cards representing professional tennis players.
Each card is unique, adding a layer of excitement and interaction for both fans and players.
Fungible users have the opportunity to craft unique game avatars to enhance their avatar's proficiency. Users can engage in weekly online tournaments, mirroring the professional tennis schedule.
They can also utilize the Fungiball marketplace to collect and trade digital cards, featuring their preferred men's and women's players.
Fungible already has 250 tennis players and counting that are officially licensed on the platform through their collaboration with the Professional Tennis Players Association, including
Alexander Zverev,
Jessica Pegula,
Felix Auger-Aliassime,
and a mystery top 5 tennis player is joining the platform this US Open, with more players to be announced each week.
As the on-court performances and results of real-life players fluctuate throughout the tour season, the skills, ratings, value, and rarity of their corresponding Fungiball NFTs also shift.
So what are you waiting for? Join the revolution in tennis gaming. Go to www.fungible.io to sign up now. The link is in the description.
Cryptocurrencies and NFTs are unregulated in some markets, including the UK. NFT profits may be subject to taxation, such as capital gains tax. The value of investments is variable and can go up as well as down. Additional fees may apply.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's US Open Round 3 catch-up, brought to you by Fungiball.
Djokovic joins Alcaraz in surprise early exits.
Swiatek and Paolini breeze through.
And Britain's Jack Draper secures a spot in round 4 without dropping a set.
Chris, today is the 1st of September, and we are here to catch up on round 3 of the US Open at Tennis Weekly HQ. Did anyone see this coming? Novak Djokovic is out in straight sets at the hands of Alexei Popyrin, which means he has endured his first Sam this season since 2017. It was better news for defending ladies champion Coco Guaff, who battled through, whilst Frances Tiafoe won in an all-American ding-dong against Ben Shelton. With Jack Draper also winning, there is still British interest in the singles. Chris, honestly, where to start? Djokovic, the result no one saw coming, or, as I like to say for the Brits, the result no one was expecting to wake up to on Saturday morning.
Yes, I think I saw a lot of things saying, oh, you wait until Europe wakes up to this news on social media. And I think we all had the same reaction when we saw some of the results that have been coming through, because no one thought that both of these players would go out this early. I think you could say with Popyrin's form and the previous head-to-head record, he has beaten Djokovic before.
Yeah. Masters champion now as well.
Masters champion, exactly. So it's definitely a case where this is the first time he's beaten him, but they have had those very, very close results at Wimbledon and Australia this year. But with Alcaraz, I mean, that was almost more surprising to me, the fact that he didn't really show up in that one. Whereas, I mean, losing to Popyrin in round 3, it's one of the toughest draws you could have had on paper. But then we're so used to seeing him come through against players like Popyrin twice this year.
I just sort of woke up in the morning with this sort of sense of dread just before I check my live scores around the night session, because for all of our listeners, the night session basically starts at midnight in the UK. So we're normally getting to sleep, or the match has just started, but we're not awake for the result. And when I opened up my app live scores as part of my daily morning routine, and I saw the Alcaraz result, I saw the Djokovic result, I just couldn't believe it.
I couldn't either. And Kim broke the news to me about Djokovic. And so when you see a name in the group chat, that's when you know you should be worried.
Yeah, something
major has happened.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, we're going to be covering all of that, all of round 3. We are recording on Sunday morning, so we have got a plethora of results to catch up on round 3. We're also going to be previewing week 2 as well, and we're going to be hearing from the founder of Fungiball in the second half. So don't miss that out as well. But let's start with the Alcaraz and Osaka results from round 2, Chris, because they're so big. We just have to quickly talk about them from round 2. This happened after we recorded our round 2 catch up, but Carlos Alcaraz out to Botic van der Sande Sculpt. I said that slowly.
Said.
Yeah, I know. I've said that to myself 20 times before we started recording. Straight set 6-1, 7-5, 6-4. Yeah. What happened here for Carlos Alcaraz?
Well, it feels like he very much was playing in a similar way to the result where we saw him smash a racket in the US swing. It has not been the same. I mean, losing his first match he played in Cincinnati, it was a very, very frustrated Carlos Alcaraz. It was not the Carlos Alcaraz that could do no wrong in the Wimbledon final. And I think clearly it's a case that he didn't feel that confident in these moments. He's kind of low on confidence, which is something that probably stems from being so close to getting that Olympic gold. Everything is going in your favor and having such a positive wave of momentum. And clearly he was not confident coming into this because he started very, very slowly, very uncharacteristic that first set. He did make it a bit more competitive, but I mean, Botic van der Zandschulp, he actually hasn't won back-to-back matches this year. This is a crazy result. And obviously he did play well.
Straight sets as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you think about it in terms of the form. I mean, it's similar to sort of the Dan Evans form coming into this. And then obviously he had a good run here, but he didn't beat Carlos Alcaraz to make that good run. It's similar levels of form. And you look at the winners to unforced errors, 21 winners, 27 unforced errors. In terms of the other sort of stats that you look at here, he wasn't getting it done on the first serve, just 60% of points won on first serve. Whereas at Wimbledon and at some of the other tournaments we've seen this year, I mean, he's been looking so good on serve. It's the most improved shot in his game. So for me, you can't have everything in a year. It's so rare that someone would win more than 2 slams and an Olympic gold. He obviously won Olympics.
Do you think that Olympic final is haunting him a little bit? Because in the way I'm looking at it is that was the first big final from Grand Slams and the Olympics that he has lost, because he's, I think, 4-0 in final matchups at Grand Slams. This was the first big final that he's lost. Do you think there's been a little bit of a hangover from that affecting him mentally?
Yeah, I think he was devastated by it. And
playing for his country as well.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously the Nadal doubles didn't go the way that he wanted it to either. So that's definitely, I mean, if you've never experienced disappointment like that, then the way that people respond to that is very different. So you take time off. He obviously couldn't take off as much time as maybe he wanted to, because Cincinnati comes around quite quickly after the Olympics, for example. But I mean, clearly he was, very kind of disappointed in that, because it was close, that Olympic final. There was a real chance that he could get it. And I think that's definitely something where, when it comes to achieving your dreams and the fact that he is this golden boy who has had so much success, who is chasing to be better than Novak Djokovic ultimately, and it's idol Rafael Nadal, it's going to be a blow. And I think we've seen with people like Naomi, who will talk about, when it comes to disappointment and how you handle it, this is a learning curve for him.
Well, let's talk about Naomi Osaka, because in that very night session, she went out to Karolina Muchova, and just kind of reading some of the quotes from Osaka coming out of that match, it's very interesting to hear how, as I say, she is handling these defeats, and it feels like she is putting a lot of pressure on herself with these losses, because she spoke about, it feels a little rough because I do take these losses really personally. It's like a dramatic word, but I feel like my heart dies every time I lose. What do you make of those comments? The fact that, as I say, she is putting a lot of heart and a lot of emotion, and she's taking these very personally, these results, when they're not going her way.
Oh, it's so hard to hear that, because she's such an accomplished individual in so many aspects of life. You do just think that when it comes to the mentality side of things, the nature of how she's been brought up has actually led to a point where the results are so tied to how she feels about herself. And that's a very dangerous place to be in as an individual who will be playing every week. And unless you win the title, you're losing. And you have to, well, your heart has to die every time you lose every week, which is a horrible thing to think about. But I was really shocked once with the result against Anisimova in the third round of the Australian Open. And I saw the way she responded. They had cameras, unfortunately, behind the courts. We've talked about it before. And she was so devastated. You could tell it wasn't just, I've lost, I'm annoyed by this, I've lost, I'm disappointed. Her heart was broken. And I think that when it comes to the sport psychologist side of things and the way that you can frame things, I really think it would help Naomi. I'm no expert, but you really, if you're a professional athlete, you have to be invested, but you also have to be resilient. And I think
to be able to move on.
Yeah, sometimes it can chip away at you. Whereas you see some players who are like, yeah, I didn't play well enough. That's it. We move on. And I really believe that they think like that. And that's how the best players, the best mentalities of players respond to it. So we love Naomi. We really want her to be able to get back to that level because she has the level. We know she has the level. This year,
I think that's what's so frustrating because we've seen the level from her. She's just coming into these roadblocks. It feels quite early on, particularly in the slams. You know, Muchova here, Swiatek at the French Open as well. Yeah, it's probably a source of frustration. The fact that she's feeling well, I think she physically feels well as well. But as I say, kind of the results they just not seem to be coming at the moment.
Yeah, and it's definitely about the fact that when it's been a while since you have gone deep in these tournaments, I think she knows she can win them. But I think that getting that out on the match court is quite different. And we've seen the similar thing with Nadal, who was saying in Boston how well he's practicing, but not how well he's playing. So I think it's always going to be a challenge, but she will be playing in the Asian swing. Traditionally, she's had some great results there. She'll have a lot of support. And there is still time to get her ranking up to then have what could be a really big year at the Slams next year for her.
Well, we do hope the best for Naomi Osaka, and we'll have to see how she gets on in the Asian swing. But let's move on to round 3. And Chris, we've got to start with Novak Djokovic. He has ended the season slamless for the first time since 2017. He lost to Alexei Popyrin in 4 sets. Yeah, how big of a shock was this? Djokovic spoke about this being some of the worst tennis he has ever played. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
I mean, clearly he didn't mince his words there. He's had a few of those this year, though. And I think that's why this is all the more surprising, is that he hasn't been playing that well, apart from in that sort of the bar when he was highly motivated playing best of 3 sets at the Olympics. In terms of the result, I mean, we talked about the fact it's not the most surprising result I've ever seen. But at the same time, what is surprising is that going into this season, I was even making predictions of maybe a Golden Slam. I was thinking this could be a year where he goes to almost God status in tennis. And it hasn't happened. He's got the one he really wanted. But I mean, he hasn't really been that close to winning another slam.
No. Why do you think that is? Is it the best of 5 set format? Is this the first thing to go in relation to kind of your superpowers on the tennis court? And as I say, we're sort of witnessing this slow unraveling of Djokovic, and it started, as I say, at the Grand Slam arena because it is the most physical environment.
I think there's a really strong case for that. I also think it's been a very strange thing watching him get the shakes on court. Physically, we've had so many question marks as to where he is. And when you do reach, I'm not saying that 37 is the ripe old age of 37, but things catch up with you. We've seen it catch up with many players in a way that there is that year where you shift from being maybe number 1 to being top 10. And then you have to think, do I still want to be in top 10 or can I get back up there? So we're no way are we at a point where he will be not competing for slams next year, but it is definitely a case where the physicality of 5 sets, I think, is a big factor. There are some definitely underlying physical or nerve sort of moments that are happening in terms of the shaking is very unusual. But also in terms of the level of tennis, I think when you don't have the physicality that you can always rely on, it does mean that other parts of your game can become unstuck.
And you spoke about the start of the season. I think we were all in the same boat thinking Djokovic will continue on his warpath. He'll easily get to 25 Grand Slams. And we were talking about the, calendar golden slam for Djokovic. That didn't materialize. He did win the Olympic gold medal. So what do you think he will look back on this season so far and think the fact that he did get kind of the final piece in the jigsaw in terms of that Olympic gold, but he's not been at the races at all 4 Grand Slams. He's not won an extra Grand Slam trophy this season. Do you think he would take that, given, as I say, he's got the missing piece, or do you think he will be disappointed that he's not been able to add to the Grand Slam trophy cabinet?
Well, he's a man with a lot of perspective. He's been in quite a few disappointing finals. He takes it on the chin. I'm always so impressed with how quickly he almost compartmentalizes it. He moves on, and that's something that not many people can do. So I think that's something that he will be able to kind of move past. I think when it comes to the Olympics, that was the goal. Goal was Olympic gold. It was the only thing he didn't have. He was so motivated for it. And I think before the US Open, and we were talking about what next for him, and I think that's something where I've never achieved anything in the way that he has, obviously, but I can see how when you've completed everything you've ever wanted to achieve, and now you want the icing on the cake, it's not necessarily going to be as easy to be as motivated for that. We've seen that with Serena getting that final slam to get over the all-time list, or get to 24, get to whatever number it is that we're looking at now. And it's going to be hard. I do think it would be hard to stay that motivated, because the thing that you're building towards, the final push almost, was the Olympics in my mind. So I think it will be interesting to see how motivated he will be to get another one, or whether it will be a time where he might actually start thinking about wrapping it up. And I'm not saying that he should, but I think it does become, is this what you want to be doing now when you are the greatest of all time? And is this the way you want to spend your time? Because when you're that successful, you have the luxury of doing whatever you want. And so we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that the question could be, if it continues, like, is it actually like he's damaging maybe his legacy by continue to play on past the peak of his powers, going out meekly in week 1, for example, in 2025? Yeah, it certainly should be a question. I mean, just looking at
the Wimbledon final, though, right? So
that is true.
Maybe I'm overreacting, but we're so used to Djokovic being number 1, not number 4.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, next Grand Slam, Australian Open, that is a home for him. So I think he'll have, he'll be very high spirits for that. But before we get to that, where do you think the rest of this season will go for Djokovic? Do we expect to see him back on the tour at some point? I mean, we spoke about before this episode, before recording, about the ATP finals at the end of the season.
Yes.
Olympic gold is all well and good, but that does not give you any ranking points. The big ranking point opportunities, he's not really kind of cashed in on. He will need to play to qualify. Do you think that's going to be a priority on his calendar for the rest of the year? Where do you see Djokovic going from here?
I can't see him really caring about the end of season finals. I honestly can't, because if he was in a situation where he qualified, even then I think it would be, do you think this is what you want to be doing at this stage of the tour and the circuit? Like, he obviously played a very full end of season last year with the Davis Cup, probably played a bit too much towards the end of the season. It was a bit different for the lead in to Australia. So maybe I can see it both ways. Do I think he's going to play any more tournaments this year? I'm not sure. Do I think he might play Paris potentially? I'm not sure about the Asian swing. I'm not sure if we definitely will see him this year, but I think it's more about building for next season and peaking in Australia, as opposed to trying to get the 6th spot, for example, at the ATP finals, when he's done it, he's won it. It doesn't feel like that's
Leave it
what
to
he's
everyone
going
else
for.
now.
Exactly.
And just a word on Alexei Popyrin, because he, regardless of how awful, in his words, Djokovic played, Alexei Popyrin got the job done. He is he's a Masters champion now. What do you think was kind of the X factor that he brought to the court to win this? Was it just that belief that he's been competitive with Djokovic, on a couple of times this season so far? What was it about Popyrin as say, helped him get over the finish line?
Well, belief. He has the game, he has the serve. He's also played him twice this year in slams and lost. So winning that Masters and coming through at such a big tournament, I think that is really the thing that does it. And what I like so much about this story is that last year we were watching the Davis Cup and he was sat on the bench. He was not selected and we couldn't understand it because his ranking was top 40 at the time. Hewitt completely overlooked him for it. And now he's the first Masters winner from Australia since Hewitt. He's also just upset Novak Djokovic at the US Open, which is huge. And I think potentially it's the fact that he's got a point to prove. That's a better way of putting it. He's got a point to prove that he hasn't always been, the golden boy of Australia. Nick Kyrgios, Alex de Minaur, they've been names that have got quite far. But I think he really thinks it is his time. And I think when you believe that something is your time and that you can do it and you have proven to yourself you can win a big title, I think it changes the mindset. And there was a big difference between this match and Wimbledon.
Yeah, it was a very good win for Popyrin, and I think he's obviously continued on from the title in Canada, in the Canada Masters. I think that's probably brought him a lot of confidence as well and momentum. So yeah, very good for Australian tennis at the moment, because Jordan Thompson also through to round 4, Alex de Minaur as well. So yeah, that whole group forced to be reckoned with, I think, when it comes to Davis Cup. I mean, just elsewhere very quickly, we had Frances Tiafoe defeat Ben Shelton in 5 sets. We thought that was going to be the Friday night match on Atch. It wasn't. It was in the day session, but alas, good win for Tiafoe. Coco Guaff,
yes.
Yeah, huge stuff going on there. I sort of don't want to brush over it. Chris, very quickly, immediate thoughts on that?
I think everyone is very happy that Tiafoe is having another moment. I think that's the big thing, that he didn't bottle it in any way, shape, or form.
But are you sad that we didn't get the phone down gesture from Shelton?
I think that was a moment that happened, and I'm glad that it's over. We like new celebrations at Tennis Weekly. Give us something different. I think that phone got disconnected a while ago.
Yeah, it's funny because Tiafoe after the match, he was caught mouthing that this was his expletive house. This is my expletive house. So Shelton can have the phone calls, but we know the phone calls are taking place now inside.
I'd argue it's probably Djokovic's house or Federer's house.
Djokovic has left the house. The house.
So maybe he's in Airbnb and he's renting it.
Yeah. But yeah, Frances Tiafoe played very, very well. Particularly, I loved how he handled and was just carving out opportunities on the Shelton serve, because we know what such a weapon that is for him. I think he dropped a casually 143 mile per hour serve to have the fastest in the tournament. But 21 break points carved out by Tiafoe just shows that he, on his return game, it was very, very much on. So good win for him. We also had Coco Guaff and Paula Badosa come through in 3 sets. A lot of 3-set victories, actually, in the ladies' tournament on day 5 on the show courts, because, yes, Gauff, Sabalenka also coming through in 3 sets. As I say, Badosa, Navarro, and Elise Mertens. So, some good wins there. But let's move on to day 6, Chris. And, not as dramatic, I would say, as maybe day 5, but Sinner and Medvedev are going very, very well at the moment, and I think you got to think all eyes are now on them, really, with the fact that Alcaraz is out, Djokovic is out. I think I was reading that Daniil Medvedev is the only former US Open champion, men's champion, still left in the draw.
So then it must be his house, surely.
Maybe it's his house, yeah.
Yes, I mean, he wouldn't swear, though, would he?
What have you made of Sinner and Medvedev so far? Because Sinner started off a little scratchily, I think, at the start of the tournament, but he seems to be into his groove now. And with Daniil Medvedev, we've not really spoken much about him, but he again had a very good win against a very dangerous player in Caboli of Italy. Straight sets, 3-4-3. Is it now at a point with Medvedev and Sinner that the US Open is theirs to lose?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm going to make you answer that one as well, Joel. But I think you'd have to go with the experience in this case because Jannik Sinner, world number one, won his first slam this year. Medvedev, a single slam winner who really, when you think about it, should have more than that if he wasn't playing at a time when so many good players are playing. Um, I think Medvedev, thank goodness, he's very level-headed because otherwise, I think you might start to get ahead of yourself. And I don't think he ever really does that too much. I think he sometimes doesn't look too far ahead in things. But if they are going to do it, I mean, they've got to beat each other if they make it to the quarterfinals, which is a very tough part of the draw. And we will be previewing that a little bit later on. But I'd say yes to that question, Joel. What would you say?
I think it's Jack Draper's to lose.
Okay.
I think I do think I think now, as I say, the mantle or the focus, the spotlight is on them, and I think they'll both be a little bit sort of annoyed maybe that they've got to face each other in the quarters because it feels like the draw has opened up for everyone who has stayed in it, and I certainly think that those two have played some of the best tennis and played some of the most kind of consistent tennis. So I think you do have to look at them. But certainly, I think there are other players who will be licking their lips possibly at the prospect of making a Grand Slam final for the first time. And I think one of those players will be Jack Draper because he was in the Carlos Alcaraz quarter. We were sort of thinking, Jack Draper, Carlos Alcaraz round 3, just generally Jack Draper, Carlos Alcaraz at a Grand Slam. It just feels like the Grand Slam gods don't want that to happen just yet. But yes, Draper into round 4, hasn't dropped a set yet. What have you made of his performances so far? And the fact that he was so easily able to come through against the Alcaraz conqueror, Van der Zand Sculp, in straight sets. Can we read much into that?
It's always hard to back up a big win. Anyone who listens to us regularly will know that we talk about it a lot. It's a lot of expectation comes after that. Also, it's hard to keep the magic of that win alive. Tennis is brutal. And I think Raducanu said that in press before the tournament started. Like,
just ask Dan Evans.
Well, yeah, exactly. It was like yesterday's news. It doesn't matter how you played 2 days ago. Tennis.
He's now the player who got bageled by de Minaur on the way out.
Yeah, I mean, literally 1 minute you're a hero winning the longest match of a tournament. The next one you can barely walk because you played such a long one. And it's such a shame in that respect. But I'm very impressed by Jack Draper. I think this season, and he talked about this, he has been a bit of a maybe man. He's lost a lot of close matches against top players. So he hasn't yet faced someone who I would class as being like a top player. So it would be interesting to see if he does play against de Minaur, if they do make it there, for example, or if he does get to play against a top player like Medvedev or Sinner, if we're looking too far ahead now. But I think you need a test.
I mean, Thomas Macak in the next round, both those players actually haven't dropped a set this tournament. Maybe Macak's a little bit more of the surprise. Having said that, though, he won the gold in the mixed doubles at the Olympics. So maybe he, again, is carrying on that confidence and that momentum that, a gold medal would bring. So will be very interesting to see. I mean, just on some of the other results.
Gold medals, I was going to say, the medalists have been doing very well on the women's side, haven't they?
Donovekic as well, doing very well. Jessica Pegula has come through in straight sets. It just feels like all the women, regardless of what's happening in the men's draw, the top women's players, they're getting it done. Even Jasmine Paolini, actually. I mean, she's now reached the second week of a Grand Slam. All the Grand Slams this year. She was going into this season having never achieved that. So impressive effort, because I feel like we're just sort of waiting for the Paolini train to sort of derail a little bit, but she just keeps going on and on.
She does. She's like a Duracell bunny at this point where she just powers up at the slams and off she goes. I mean, it's so refreshing to see someone who's able to take their level and then sustain it. We see it so often, as we've said, that people can't. They have a breakout tournament, for example, like Qinwen Zheng, who had such a big Australian Open backed up at the Olympics, but at other Grand Slams has been very absent. So she's now back, also progressing at the US Open. But for Paolini, I mean, it's almost like people want to take what she's got and bottle it, because, I mean, she's gone from a very, very mediocre Grand Slam player, a good top 100 player, top 50 player, to being
a good doubles player,
a fantastic doubles player, but to being right at the top of the game, competing in the latter stages of slams, which is something that you really only see top five, like established top five players doing regularly. So very, very impressive. And I mean, elsewhere, we also saw Swiatek come through, which was much more routine. They obviously played each other in the final in Paris. Iga's looking a lot better. Paolini's looking great. Is it a case where we're going to get the seeds playing seeds in the later stages?
Yeah. I mean, I think we could be on for a very spicy set of matchups in the quarterfinals because, say, Muchova's still in. Caroline Wozniacki, no one's really speaking about, is into round 4. So yeah, lots and lots of exciting matchups to come. We're going to be looking at those in the second half as part of our week 2 preview, but we're going to end it there now. But I do hope you can join us in the second half, where we will be taking a look, as I say, at week 2 at Flushing Meadows, plus listen to our interview with the founder of Fungiball. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast and our round 3 US Open catch-up brought to you by Fungiball. And as we head into the second week of the US Open, we'd just like to say big thank you to our sponsors, Fungiball, for supporting our coverage of Flushing Meadows this year. And Chris, you got the opportunity to speak to the founder of Fungiball, Matias. Say the founder. I hope I'm saying that right. That was my best French accent. Actually, it wasn't really much of an accent at all. But yeah, you got to speak to the. I try. Yeah, yes. I try. But you got to speak to the founder during the week just to find out a little bit more about Fungiball itself.
And now, listeners, we have something a little different. We have our US Open partner, Fungiball, joining us on the podcast. Fungiball is pioneering the play-to-earn fantasy tennis world that seamlessly combines the thrill of professional tennis with the transformative power of blockchain technology. And we are lucky to have founder and CEO, Matias, joining us from New York. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you for the podcast. Really happy to explain what is Fungiball and what we are bringing to the tennis industry.
Well, before we get into that, we have to find out from our listeners' perspective. You're in New York right now. You're lucky enough to be there. You're going to see the tennis. You're even having conversations with tennis players there. How is the atmosphere in New York right now?
Yeah, I think it's my first time here in US Open, and I think the atmosphere is really incredible. There is really different from other big slams that I went to. Here, you feel the American aspect of the things. Yeah, for example, you can enter into the course watching tennis players every game, so that's really different atmosphere. I think it's really great for tennis because, for example, for the kid days, I saw so many people. Here. Tennis is good, so I think this tournament is really important for the ecosystem of tennis because it brings a huge audience to watch the games, and this is what tennis really need. And it's in New York, so obviously it's a really great city.
It is, and I was there last year, and it was my first time in New York. And the thing that surprised me is that these aren't just tennis fans; these are people who are there to be entertained, and so they're almost like chatting away during the point. It's much more laid back, and it's almost like the players have to entertain them. It's a bit different from Wimbledon, where everyone's a bit more
really different. Yeah. And it's also what makes the things interesting is that every big slam has its own characteristics. So US Open is really interesting. And for example, I was watching yesterday Alcaraz game against Voltic, and when the audience catch a ball, it's like baseball, right now. So you will never see that in Roland Garros or Wimbledon, for example. So that's really, really fun to watch.
So you saw that match. How was it there? Because Carlos obviously went out. It's the big upset that's just happened. From a live perspective, seeing the level, what did you think?
Yeah, I think Botic had a really great game. So he was focused on all points. That's why he win. I saw maybe Carlos a little bit like tired of lack of energy, lack of concentration. He was playing really good tennis. in the last few months, so maybe like you need maybe some rest. But yeah, really well done for Botic that really was focused on every point and provide us a really good tennis.
Were the crowd shocked by what was happening? I feel like sometimes when there's an
Yeah.
upset, they're almost quiet.
Yeah, exactly. We really felt the audience really shocked about this defeat, because they saw during the game that Carlos were going to lose, and it's like the second round of US Open. We're not used to this kind of player lost at this stage, but yeah, I mean, it's the sport, and I mean, Carlos is so young, so he still have another opportunities. So I'm really not worried about it. It's a really huge source. So, but yeah, it's tennis. It's what also make it beautiful is that anyone can beat anyone.
Exactly. And that does make it exciting. One thing we always kind of just ask our listeners before we start talking about anything else is in terms of the players or the matches that you've seen that kind of got you into the sport, that made you love the sport. Are you allowed to have favorites as the CEO of Fungiball? Or if not, tell us a match that you particularly enjoyed that got you into the sport.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of tennis since a little. Yeah, I can talk about my childhood when I was coming back from school. At time, obviously, I was born in France, so obviously, when I come back from school during the May season, I was watching the French Open with Nadal. Obviously, it was so incredible to see him win this competition years after years. I'm also a huge fan of Djokovic. I think is really what he made in tennis is really impressive. I mean, winning all these tournaments, just winning the gold medal at his age.
It's unbelievable.
You remember me, Cristiano Ronaldo for soccer, but for tennis. So this is the kind of athletes I'm really impressed in, and I mean, for me, those are really heroes because they bring willing to young people to play in that game. So yeah, this is how I kind of discovered tennis. I play it, obviously. Now
are you
I
any
have
good?
less time with the company. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I have less time to play in the last 2 years, but now I'm taking back playing. And yeah, I love so much this sport, and I want really to bring something new here. And and yeah, I think the new generation is really also incredible with Alcaraz, Sinner, but we have also like I'm thinking of Arthur Fils. So we have a new generation, and I'm confident for the future of tennis after Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal exposure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you may not be spending as much time as you used to on the tennis court, but you're spending a lot of time on the fantasy tennis court. Obviously, we've introduced you as the CEO of Fungiball, but our listeners might all not be fully familiar. Those who've listened to our first few catch-ups about the US Open will have heard the ad read. They would have heard a bit more about us introducing it. But what is it all about?
Yeah, so technically Fungiball is a fantasy play-to-earn game. We are selling to the blockchain technology. That's mean we will technically buy cards of tennis players, and you will be the only owner in the world of this card. Just to give you like a preview, Fungiball is a fantasy game, and there is no much fantasy games right now in tennis. We have some like console games, maybe some computer, but you have Tennis Clash on mobile, but there is a lack for me of tennis games. And the idea was first to create the best experience possible for fan of tennis, for gamers also. And technically what you do in the game is that you can buy cards of tennis players. This course will represent some skills of tennis players. So you have the service, obviously. You have also the power. You have the return, and we have the mental of each tennis player. And then I can participate in online tournaments. And regarding the real performance of the tennis players, you will have a score on each course. So to participate on these tournaments, you have to choose between 4 skills, obviously. And what is interesting in our game is that, for example, you can choose, I don't know, the serve of Zverev, the return of Djokovic, the mental of Nadal, and then you can create your own digital character that you think will be the best in real world.
Ooh, that does sound exciting. So that you can take, as you've said, you're a big fan of Nadal, big fan of Djokovic. You can take their best aspects, and then you're able to compete as that almost like hybrid of all of your favorite players. So that does sound very, very exciting. In terms of our listeners who might not be fully aware of kind of the blockchain and the NFT side of things, how exactly does that work within the platform?
Yeah, so technically, the blockchain aspect is really hidden in the project. So even if you don't know anything on crypto, you can go and play, and you will never see any crypto or NFT terms of blockchain terms. But this technology is like in back office, it's behind, and what is bring is that really that if you're going to, I don't know, to buy or to win the service of Zverev, for example. The blockchain technology allows you to be the only owner of this skill, and then you will be able to use this card in different games that we are going to develop. You are going to also be able to receive royalties. If let's imagine that Chris, you buy like a card of service of Zverev, you sell it to me, and then I sell it to another person. You, Chris, as the first owner of this card, you will receive royalties of this card. You can also trade them. So there is a lot of interesting aspect with the blockchain technology, and also for people that are asking themselves, okay, but that's mean I really need to spend money on this game? No, because we are also going to release a free-to-play game, so you will be able to play with with no money and still have the possibility to win valuable cards to play in paying tournaments.
That sounds like it's going to be a fantastic platform, no matter whether you are someone who wants to trade in the cards and buy them or not. In terms of those cards and the players that you've spoken about, you have a lot of players who've signed up to this. I think you said just before we started this, over 300 players. I think it was 250 previously, but lots more players are joining the platform. Can you tell us a little bit about the players, the big players who've joined, and any teasing of who may be joining soon?
Yeah, of course. So for the short story, I started like 2 years ago to contact tennis players, obviously, to have the right to use their image in the platform. Obviously, at the time, the company was really little, so the big ones, they told us, okay, guys, sorry, but we can go with you. And obviously, because they are really concerned about how the way we use their image. So what we did, because one of the objective of the platform is to help ITF players that are not well known. So because we give them additional revenues, that's the objective, and we give them also visibility. We signed like ITF tennis players. We were ranked in 500 for 100, and then we started signing more and more, and we get to the top 100. And also, if you want the rights of tennis players, you have to go to see him individually. There is no agency, or there is no organism that detains the right of the tennis players. So technically, we have the PTPA, with the association created by Vasek Pospisil and Novak Djokovic, who is the first group licensee in the world of tennis. They have a roster of a lot of players that then we can have access if we have a deal with them. So we made a deal with them like 1 year ago, maybe less, and then we could have access to a lot of tennis players, and we are still hiring new stars. For example, right now we have like 40 tennis players in top 100. We have Zverev also. We have Felix Ayasin, Koboli. We have also Medvedev that's going to be released next Monday. We have so huge stars coming to the platform, and the objective is to get more and more, and to also win visibility with those players.
That is some really big names there, and it sounds like it's only getting more and more momentum. In terms of the aspect of supporting and kind of providing additional revenue for players, that's something that's become quite big in other sports as well, isn't it? I think I've seen this for different football clubs, American football clubs, where it's almost like this sort of collecting of cards is becoming an additional way to support players. And what's nice is on the ITF tour, it does provide that additional revenue that sometimes it's hard for them to fund their careers without.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a tennis player ranking in 400, it's really difficult you're losing money technically. And I'm really upset with this situation right now. And you're asking about blockchain technology benefits, this is one of them. So with these cards, you can directly get revenues and royalties for those tennis players that really need it. And my personal objective is that I don't know when, but it's that all the tennis players that are in the game in the Funfiball platform, that they can receive like 1,000 euros monthly just by technically doing nothing or some marketing stuff in the sector. And I think that will really help them. And that's possible with the power of fantasy gaming, blockchain, community. And that's one of my main objectives.
And also, I mean, we've seen so many players who haven't had the funding, and then when they do have the funding, great things can happen. So that's a really nice part of this story, because funding makes such a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot, 1,000 per month for those players, but I mean, it's an help that we can provide and an objective that we can achieve that will help them for sure. So why not?
And in terms of the aspect of the fantasy element and whether your tennis knowledge comes in, where people who are really into tennis, like our listeners are, can actually put their knowledge of players and their predictions to the test. How does that work, and how does that follow the tour?
Yeah, so if you are an expert technically on tennis, obviously it will help you to see.
I'm not sure I count myself as an expert though, but I'll try.
Yeah, of course. You can identify so the strengths and the weakness of some tennis players that will help you in the game, since the performances are linked to the real ones in real life. And what is interesting is, for example, if you I don't know, if you identify a young tennis player that you think will grow, if you can buy him early, you will have a better chance that this card will improve in terms of valuation, and it will help you to win tournaments. So being a fan of tennis, it's obviously a more value to identify which tennis player and which skill could best perform and in tournaments. And if you can know, sorry to interrupt you, you can know, for example, I don't know, a young Nadal that you see that maybe you performing well in a clay court, so you will try to, when you're playing a clay court, to put his cards.
I'm thinking that maybe, like, I know that Cobolli has joined the platform. I feel like he could be a very good one, because he is only going to rise up the rankings. He's having a great run in New York as well. I think he won last night to make the third round. So
yeah, he won yesterday. Yeah,
players like him.
Cizelberg.
Yeah, it was a good win, and he's had some great results on the US hardcourt swing. So there are all sorts of players who may not be household names yet that could become household names that can keep you looking out for new talent as well.
Exactly. Yeah, we have, for example, Mensik, we have Medvedev, we have Giovanni Msetti. So we have a young roster of these players that maybe some of them will go to the top 10. So yeah, exactly.
And in terms of the feedback from users who have signed up, a lot of users have signed up now. What sort of things have people said that they really enjoy about it, and what aspects of it are you kind of adapting the platform to based on this feedback that you've got from the wider Funfiball community?
Yeah, of course. So the main point is that people really like to be connected to the real performances, to improve their skills in the game, winning also rewards, because for the community we provide rewards in the dollars. So you can win dollars if you are well ranked. You can win also cards that will help you to play in other competitions. And you can win also real experiences. For example, we have offered tickets for big slams. We offered also rackets of autograph of tennis players. We offer um, meetings with the tennis players. For
Mhm.
example, you will be able to make an online meeting with the top 10 stars, and this is something you can't buy almost anywhere. So this is like kind of VIP experiences that we can provide for the community that are really interesting and that really make the link between fans and their favorite tennis players, between the digital and the reality.
And so, in terms of that, it sounds like it's obviously much bigger than fantasy tennis in terms of the aspiration of the links that you can make with players, with fans. What would you say is like your favorite feature or the standout feature to you in terms of Fungiball and its sort of growth and development?
So you mean the features that are right now in the game, or the ones are coming?
Could be either.
Could be
Yeah.
yeah. When I created Funfiball, I imagine like career mode of fitness players. So what I think is really interesting is that you will start like everyone else, and you have the possibility to grow in the game by improving your avatar, your character, gaining some experience, gaining some points. So that's for me is the most interesting part, is that you can grow in the game, and being part also of a huge community that's are into tennis. That's for me the two main features that I think are really really great. And we are adding more and more features every week, obviously, because I consider that we are at 3 or 4% of the total evolution of Fungiball, so we have still 95% to go on.
Wow, it's a big statement. Lots to come from Fungiball. But in terms of the tennis in New York, you're there. I have to ask you, because you've seen some of the tennis firsthand, who are you picking to bring home the titles next weekend if you had to make a prediction?
Yeah. So first of all, I was saying Alcaraz. If you asked me the question yesterday, but to be honest, I think right now Zverev is really strong, really really strong. Providing
really good
tennis. Yeah, I think I haven't lost so much sets right now in US Open. And I think Djokovic is still imperial.
Yes.
So, well, I think those two are really great chances to win. And I will put also Medvedev, obviously, on the further slot. I think for me, one of those three can really be the winner of US Open. But, US Open is really particular. You never know who is going to win.
You do. It's always the one that throws up the surprise winners, doesn't it? And Zverev would be playing, I think, Djokovic if they do make it to that semi-final. So
exactly.
You'd be watching that one with very eager eyes. One final question that we always ask anyone who comes on the pod. We are a British podcast, in case that wasn't already very clear. So we are all avid tea drinkers. Obviously, you're French. How do you take your tea? What's your perfect cup of tea?
Like I have a tea right here.
Oh, wow. I can sort of see that. Is it a herbal tea? What sort of tea is it?
Yeah, it's chamomile.
Oh,
so
okay.
I drink
chamomile, lovely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I try to drink tea like in the afternoon when I work. Then I really hot with the chamomile. Yes.
We haven't had that as an answer yet, so that is very sophisticated. But thank you so much for joining us today. Do enjoy the rest of your time in New York, in the Big Apple, watching the tennis. And we eagerly await the additional player announcements over the fortnight, including Medvedev coming on Monday.
Exactly. Yeah. Can't wait. Thank you, Chris.
And it was great to hear the fact that he was at the Alcaraz match. So not only did we get to hear from our sponsor, their Fungiball, we also got to hear from the courtside perspective what the atmosphere was like in Arthur Ashe. And it sounds like people were as stunned as we were on site, as well as us when we woke up and looked at the live scores.
I was still a little bit like half asleep, and it took me probably a little bit longer to process it than I imagine people in the stadium did.
Yeah, and I think it was also quite good to hear that the Fungiball players are doing very well. And Medvedev is joining the platform on Monday. So that's a very exciting announcement.
Exclusive.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, it's perfect for them when they have their players doing particularly well. I did notice a lot of the predictions of Fungiball players, so maybe it's about keeping them sweet. But we don't have to keep anyone sweet on the podcast, do we, Joel, with our predictions?
No, we don't. And we're gonna go and move on to our week 2 preview. But once again, thank you, Jean Matias, for coming on to the pod to chat with Chris. Really, really interesting. Really, really great work you're doing in the tennis space. So thank you for sponsoring us. And yeah, very, very interesting. But yeah, let's move on to our week 2 preview.
A new section, Joel.
A new section. And we're going to be reviewing our predictions that we made at the start of the tournament. Chris, I know you're excited because you did very well with your ladies' predictions.
Yes, I did.
But because I'm the host and I'm the founder of the Tennis Week podcast, we're going to start with the men's predictions.
Okay, why is that?
Because shockingly, I have done quite well here.
Really well.
Bar Alcaraz and Djokovic. I think most of my players are still in the running.
We can forgive you that one, I think.
Yes, but we do have our round of 4 men's matchup set. I'm just gonna rattle them off now. Sinner, Paul, Borges, Medvedev, Draper, Machak, Dumanor, Thompson, and then Casper Ruud, Taylor Fritz, Nakashima, Zverev, Rublev, Dimitrov, Tiafoe, Popyrin. What do you make of that?
It's a pretty good lineup, isn't it? I think what's so great about the lineup for
a 250.
Yeah, for a 250. No, what's so great about the lineup is that there are these
500 actually. If I'll be a bit harsh there.
Yeah, exactly. If this is the first thing you're hearing and we're calling this a 250, I'm not sure that would be I'm not sure that Italian or American audiences would be thrilled by that, but it is great having these stories developing. So it's a great opportunity, especially in the bottom half of the draw. I think now the story we'll be looking at will be, will Sinner get a second slam? I think it will be, will Medvedev get a second slam? Will Zverev break his duck? It's Zverev, very, very interesting.
Spoken really much about Zverev, and he does feel like potentially the one player who could capitalize from that bottom half. Or will we get a first-time Grand Slam finalist?
Yes, or will Rublev finally make it to a semi-final? Another question that we have. But in terms of some of these ties, I think that, Sinner, we talked about how hard his draw is when you get to this stage. A lot of people have bookmarked Tommy Paul prior to the tournament starting as potentially taking him out in this round. They've both made it there in slightly different levels of convincing style.
Yeah.
Paul came through in 4 sets. This match, I'm going to put you on the spot for some of these now. We'll go through them. Sinner and Tommy Paul, is this going to be as tight as people think? Could there be an American upset here?
No. I just don't think so. Like, if Tommy Paul is struggling to get the job done and not go to 5 sets against Diallo of Canada, I have to go with Sinner here.
I think there's a very good logic there. I agree. I think Sinner's getting better and better as the tournament goes on. And I think that the time when we'll really see him tested will be the Medvedev match. Obviously, he lost to Medvedev at Wimbledon in the same round. And I think that that's where the tension and the pressure will get a lot higher because he needs to make it past a quarterfinal, I think, at this point, and another Grand Slam final. We keep rattling down. We have Nuno versus Medvedev. I think that's going to be, they've played before. It's been pretty close before.
Okay.
Are you thinking this could be a tight one?
No. Medvedev. You?
Okay. I think just because Nuno Borges has been down quite often, part of me thinks that sometimes you just play with a completely new, a renewed freedom. So I think this will be closer than we think, but I do think that Medvedev will get it done.
Right. Draper, Machak, I'm going to you for this one.
I really want to say Draper, but I do think that Machak is a very tricky customer. I think if it was someone who get played with a more consistent ball, it might be better for Draper. I think Diminar, if he does make it there, I think Draper could have a very good matchup against him. But again, I don't like to tempt fate, so I think maybe Machak in 4 potentially.
Well, Machak does have, I believe he has 3. He's 3-0 in the head-to-head across, I think, Challenger and also Tour events. So if you look at that, maybe Machak goes in. But they're both fresh, both haven't dropped a set. I think Draper's playing the better tennis, so I'm gonna go Draper.
Backing the Brit.
Okay, right. All Aussie matchup. Dumanor Thompson.
Oh, it's tough. I think you have to go for Alex on this one just because of the form he's had previously.
Yeah.
But it's tough beating a countryman, especially when you're the number one. So I think it will be maybe 4 sets. I think it will be entertaining, but I do think that the Aussie number one will come through.
Yeah, ADM for me. Rude Fritz.
This is probably
interesting. Yeah,
it is. I don't think Rude has actually
possibly tie of the match of the round. I think
it's the one that I would choose to watch if I could. Definitely. If I could be there live, I think it would be fantastic. Casper came back from 2 sets down to, walk the last 3 sets, basically.
Yeah, a weird, odd
very
scoreline.
Strange.
Yeah.
So, but Fritz, the way he dismantled Berrettini, I think right now he's looking like probably the big quarterfinal clashes could be Fritz, Zverev, and Sinner Medvedev, with a winner potentially coming from those clashes if they make it there.
Yeah, I'm going to go Casper Ruud. I think
you
might pull a surprise
for everything.
Do I? Okay. Oh, I do actually. Whoops. Maybe I have to go with Fritz. Right. Nakashima Zverev. Is this just going to be an upset? But it's going to be a walk in the park for Zverev.
I think Zverev's going to come through pretty comfortably.
Yeah.
I think Rublev Dimitrov. That's going to be who doesn't bottle it, right? I think
Dimitrov's not dropped a set going into round 4. I believe. Well,
I would love it if he could play some more flawless tennis. I think Rublev probably hasn't played the tennis coming into this that would warrant a deep run here.
Yeah.
But again, a big opportunity because the winner would play against Frances Tiafoe and Alexei Popyrin. So will Popyrin back it up? I think it's going to be.
You've got to think. If you're Andrei Rublev and you're looking at this is a golden opportunity to break my quarterfinal
seeded for the semis now
streak that I do not want. Yes.
Yes, that's not a title you want, and neither does Jessica Pegula. But Tiafoe.
Tiafoe, Popyrin, both coming off big wins. You spoke about earlier about how hard it is to back up big wins as well. Do we think that's gonna be the thing that affects Popyrin, or do you think he's gonna ride that wave of momentum?
I think it could. It could happen both ways. That first set's going to be so important. I think Tiafoe needs to feel like he's in the match. He needs the crowd to be involved. He is pumped up for it. But if Popyrin can shut down Tiafoe quite quickly and maybe win the first 2 sets, I think the momentum would then sort of set Tiafoe spiraling a little bit. So in my mind, Popyrin's going to come through this one just because I think it's different when you're playing in a very heightened sense against your countrymen. I think the reality check might be in this one, unfortunately. But who do we think is going to win it based on we've watched a week's worth of play? Oh, we have to change our predictions. We also
we do. I'm going to have to switch it to. Do you know? There's a part of me. I know I've been singing the praises of Jannik Sinner, but I do wonder if Zverev is going to right the wrongs from that
terrible US Open final.
Against Dominic Thiem.
That would be a very strange way that Zverev is winning slams at this point and Thiem is going out in round 1 on a wild card. It's who would have thought?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Zverev at the moment, but as I say, I think Sinner and Medvedev, that all eyes are on them.
I'm looking at Medvedev and probably Taylor Fritz potentially. I think it could be a case that he's playing so well, but if I had to say, I'd say Medvedev. So Kim had Medvedev for the final, so we will assume that Kim would go for Medvedev at this point. But we'll have to see. On the women's side, we're moving on as quickly as we can now because this is one where things have gone a lot better for me. Obviously Collins was a bit of a disappointment for us, but I could be on for Wozniacki Paolini, which is not
very
necessarily what we thought. Vekic Sabalenka still very much on. Badosa's had a good run here. So I think there's some interesting clashes and we can run through them, run through all of them now quickly to give you the overview. At the top half of the draw, it's Swiatek Samsonova. We have Schneider versus Pegula. That's going to be a very entertaining one. We have Wozniacki with a very much opened up draw. Rybakina would have been the opponent she would have played in the last round. She's playing Haddad Maia at this stage. Then we have Muchova versus Paolini, Badosa versus Wong. We then have Navarro Gauff, a repeat,
that Wimbledon match,
And then we have Zhang Vekic, and then we have Mertens and Sabalenka, 2 former doubles partners.
That's a great lineup. If we're talking
500 for the men, we're talking 1,000 end of season finals level.
Yeah.
Zoo high.
If end of season finals was 16 players. Yeah.
Exactly.
The
So
WTA, elite trophy.
the elite trophy is what I was thinking. Exactly. Yeah. And they can all play doubles because they're just there anyway. But in terms of the matches that we've just mentioned, Iga, Samsonova, they've had a close match, I think, previously, but
yeah,
it's been pretty one-sided ever since.
Yeah, I still go Swiatek there.
I agree. I think that's going to be pretty straightforward. But
yeah,
I mean,
this next match though, I don't think it's straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, she's a real
tough cookie.
Yeah, she is, and she
won't care for the American audience supporting JPEG. I don't think either. I think Schneider might get the upset here.
I also think so. I think the things that she's able to do that just completely rewrite the rule book. She's Ostapenko-like in that way, in terms of how she can play. And Pegula's played some very, very solid tennis, but we do always worry, does she have that X factor, that extra level that she can go to against inspired opponents on their day? I'd love it if Pegula made a deep run here, but then I also think that, you want someone in America at the US Open who really goes for it. That's what the audiences love. So I'd love to see a close match there. Wozniacki had Admire. I mean, this is going to be a long one, surely.
Yes, I love the Wozniacki. I love the Wozniacki run that she's gone on. Who has she faced? I don't think a lot of nobody. So I'm going to go Admire here.
Okay, I think either Woz will come through pretty comfortably, or it'll be a final set tiebreak and heartbreak for Wozniacki, unfortunately.
Okay.
Match Muchova? Of the tournament right here. Muchova, Paolini.
Paolini, yes. Tasty.
I think Muchova's going to come through. The variety. She's playing so well. Inspired some of the shots.
I honestly think Muchova's like the most underrated player in tennis. She's like never seen
skill level. It's like
never she just plays because of injury. She just plays very few and far between. But when she does play,
it's incredible.
Force to be reckoned with. I'm going to go Muchova.
And then we have Badosa playing against Wong, who's a bit surprising that she's made it to this stage. Great draw for Paula.
Yeah, I mean, just about came through against Rusa.
Very edgy.
Yeah, in the last match. I'll stick with Badosa, I think.
I'm going to do the same. And then we have a very big match, another day session, surprisingly, of Navarro and Gauff. So will we see the same sort of result as Wimbledon? That was very comfortable for Navarro. Is this Coco's home court, though?
Oh, this is tough. I'm going to go Coco Guaff. Guaff to get some revenge on Navarro, I think.
I also think that Gauff is going to come through. She's finding a way in New York to win ugly and get it done. And Navarro hasn't really announced herself on the US stage quite yet. It's a very different prospect winning the US Open. Then we have a an Olympic final repeat, which is very unfortunate. The ranking points don't count. Otherwise, this would never be happening. The surface, I think, favors Vekic a little bit more.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I'm going to go. I'm going to go Chin Wei-Jiang. I think Chin Wei-Jiang's playing some great tennis at the moment.
I mean,
to be fair, they both are. This could be one of the matches of the round, I think. But I'm going to go Zheng.
And then Mertens Sabalenka. I'm going Sabalenka. Are you as well?
Yeah, it's got to be Sabalenka against Mertens. Mertens, she's done her job. It's got to the actually, she's done better than her job of getting to the round 3. She's round 4. But
very good.
Winners. Got to go Sabalenka.
Now I have to ask: is she going to win it? You had her to win at the start of the tournament.
I'm sticking with Sabalenka. Yeah.
I had Swiatek to win it. This is so open. I do think that it's going to be a Sabalenka-Swiatek final still. So
okay,
I'm going to stick with my guns. I think there could be some great results here. I think, again, as we say, this is a very, very good lineup going into.
It's very balanced as well. I think. I don't think there's a half you would necessarily favour over the other. I think it's very equal across the board.
Yeah, I think it is pretty equal. And I think that, if anything, the bottom section is a little bit stacked with like Coco Guaff being in there.
Yeah,
We've
true.
got Chin Wen-Zheng, we've
True.
got Sabalenka, Vekic, players who could all be seeded, to be honest, for the quarterfinals at the next slam that we see.
Yeah, well, we shall see. We shall see. Week 2 coming up in New York City, US Open. We're not on the final stretch just yet, but yeah, we've got a lot of tantalizing matchups to look forward to. Listeners, we're going to end our round 3 catch up there. I hope you have enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come from the second week from Flushing Meadows. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Plus, like and subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that notification bell.
Because we are on video for every episode of this. They're all video episodes during the US Open. So do check us out there. If you'd like to watch our clips, they're on social media. And you can also email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X, and the handle is Tennis Weekly Pod. You can purchase our Tennis Weekly merch that you can wear at Flushing Meadows. That's etsy.com/shop/Tennis Weekly Podcast. You can email us, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, or do check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back on Monday evening at Tennis Weekly HQ for our round 4 catch up of the US Open, brought to you by Fungiball. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.